It may seem hard to believe, but even here in 2025, some car manufacturers are still going by the old adage of, if it ain't broke, just don't fix it. And while tried and true might be the best thing for some out there, for others, like Kia, for example, you might just switch the words around a little bit and suddenly you're headed in a whole different direction. Because instead of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you might think, if it ain't broke, just make it better. And thanks once again to the Parkway family of dealerships out here in Kingwood, Texas, we're here to explore one such creation to come from such a notion. Wearing a newer and much more bold personality, it's the facelifted 2026 Kia Sportage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so once again, you are seeing things from my perspective, and we are in, as you can see, the 2026 Kia Sportage, and I feel like we've picked a pretty good one this time. This is an SX Prestige front-wheel drive. You would think, ooh, Prestige, that would be the king of the hill. It would be the best one you can get. Surprisingly enough, though, what we're in today is not even the priciest of the Sportage trim levels. And that's excluding all of the plug-in hybrids, turbo hybrids, and all that good stuff. You know, it's kind of, like I said, one of those improving sort of philosophies. It's not so much like, let's redo the entire car. It's more so just give it what it needs, but don't take away anything that was already good about it. And the first thing that's pretty good about the Sportage is that even though it only makes 187 horsepower and 178 foot-pounds of torque from a 2.5-liter gasoline direct injection 4-cylinder paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and in this case we are front-wheel drive, the numbers in terms of how much you will save at the pump are quite surprising. 25 in the city, 33 on the highway. And you know what? I would not mind trying one of these for a little bit longer to see if I could really push that even further. Because there have been cases where many of us have seen Kia's products overdo the EPA estimates. I have no doubt this thing could probably hit, 35, 36 on the highway. And again, this isn't even a hybrid that I'm driving here. For not even having a turbocharger under the hood, gotta say the Sportage definitely knows how to, pick up its skirt and go, but it's in such an effortless and smooth fashion. It doesn't feel jerky or, urgent, like it's trying to, jump forward at every light. Well, the only time that happens is when the factory auto start stop kicks in. But other than that, the NVH, as a lot of people like to call it, noise, vibration, harshness, it's really no worse than any other, crossover I've ever driven, but it is quite a lot better than I was expecting it to be. The noise in here feels much more well insulated. You can hear some of the road, especially considering that being a Prestige, you get things like larger wheels and tires, thrown in as extra. But overall, the suspension doesn't have a whole lot of rebound. It just settles itself out very, very nicely. It's not a pillow. Don't think you're driving, like an old Cadillac or something like that. But for a 3,600-pound, small to medium-sized crossover, depending on what your variations of its dimensions might be, it's incredibly relaxing in here. Visibility is fantastic. I can look out of every single direction, even out of the back, and it's just, I would not hesitate in any sense of the word to take something like this on a road trip. Now, if at any time you're suddenly feeling the urge to turn into an episode of Need for Speed and you suddenly think that the run to school needs to be your personal best, well, right here on the steering wheel, instead of down in the center console, which is definitely a nice thing, there is your drive mode button. Now, I've got 3 different ones in this. I've got normal, which I'm in right now. I can push it again, puts it in sport. Now the RPMs are up a little bit. And then you have My Drive, which basically is like you get to personalize and tailor your driving experience just as you want it. And I think that's one good thing that a lot of car buyers expect. They don't need a zillion different ways to tailor their driving experience. They either want to get the most fuel efficient experience, they want to get the fastest one, or they want something that's just kind of right in the middle. Okay, Kia, I see what you're getting at. So now that I'm in sport, the steering is much more firm, it's more direct, and there is a little bit of play in it. You don't need to, be the best racing driver of all time, but let's face it, again, if you're trying to get to school on time, that would definitely help you when it comes to getting there just that little bit quicker. But considering that this is a mid-cycle refresh, the driving dynamics aren't necessarily the real key factor here. That's what happens when you finally get to wherever you're going and ultimately decide you need to step back and take another look. Now, while it may drive pretty closely to how it was before it was refreshed, when it comes to this new visual appeal and the entire look that Kia is going for, this is where cars like this are starting to raise the company even higher up the food chain, because now we have a much wider and taller tiger nose grille, in this example being dressed in full gloss black. The headlights completely redesigned, with this Prestige model boasting the cube style LED lighting assembly with high beams, low beams, your combination LED daytime running light and turn signal. In the Prestige model, you also get the twin LED cube style fog lights down below. And while this may look like a bit of a stormtrooper spec we got going on here with this glacial white pearl, this Prestige model also carries about as much technology as something from Silicon Valley. We have the standard stuff like radar cruise control with stop and go, forward collision warning, front and rear park assist, you have lane keep assist, lane following, but you also have some pretty trick stuff that you get the higher you go up the trim level ladder. On this particular example, we have the surround view monitor, which coincides with the blind spot viewing monitor that can be seen in the gauge cluster. And unlike most new vehicles, which would usually experience some sort of dramatic overhaul, like I said, the Sportage just kind of had a little nip here and a little tuck there just to make it better than it already was in 2025. And as such, dimensionally, this thing is exactly the same as the one your neighbor has. 183.5 inches long from nose to tail, which means it's pretty much what you would expect a medium-sized compact crossover to be. One thing you might not expect, however, is what Kia has done with the 19-inch wheels on this Prestige model. Considering this car is supposed to be a child carrier or a family carrier of some kind, they kind of look like something out of Roblox or Minecraft, or maybe somebody who was just heavily influenced by such, because you have this digital design going on with the X pattern going through the middle, plenty of gloss black, a little bit of bright silver to kind of break up that sort of monotony look to it. But to make sure you don't ruin that face, those rather interesting looking wheels are wrapped in 235/55 series Michelin all-season tires. And if you're going to have a name like Prestige in your trim level title, well, you better make sure that you're going to live up to that, because even though we aren't even close to the most expensive of the Sportage's trim levels, it goes without saying there is a lot for the money just on the face of it here. Power folding exterior mirrors that are body colored with the LED turn signals in the side, standard blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, not to mention blacked out window trims, which normally are like a satin silver on a lot of other vehicles. But then you get to a massive panoramic sunroof, which at first glance pretty much goes the entire length of the roof of the vehicle. Now, whether or not this might be considered a safety hazard to some, well, I'm gonna leave that up to you. But still, considering the size of the vehicle in comparison to the size of the sunroof, it's definitely worth talking about. But the other thing that I personally love talking about with a car like this, or a Kia vehicle in general of the modern day, is just how you get in or out of this thing. Yes, you have the standard touch points for locking and unlocking the vehicle, so you just touch the side of it, watch the mirrors fold in, and of course now it's locked. You want to get in, you just grab the handle as normal, and it unlocks for you. But you pull this key fob out of your pocket, and I swear again, it looks like you're holding the button to a nuclear detonator. The lock button is right there on top of the key with the Kia logo on the side lighting up in green, showing that the function has been completed. But then you also also have unlock, power tailgate, panic, and a welcome relief as standard on most models, especially here in Texas, a factory remote start system. Now, while the Sportage might be putting a new face on things, when it comes to its rear end, well, let's be real, it's not that much different compared to how it was in 2025. The taillights have been reworked internally, however, with the main brake lights here, giving a little bit more of that premium look to it compared to how they were before. But everything else, like the subtle spoiler with your LED third brake light and the vast amount of blackness going across the lower portions of the rear end here, are all pretty rudimentary things that you might remember from the pre-refresh model. And that's pretty much the same case when you take the key out of your pocket and decide to get a little more practical. Now, even though the Sportage is technically classified as a compact crossover, from a visual standpoint here inside the tailgate, it looks anything but. And the numbers on paper prove that point. Behind the second row of seats is 39.6 maximum cubic feet of cargo volume. Now, I say maximum because you can actually get a couple of different floor configurations in here, which means that you might lose at maybe a cubic foot of space or two, but not really enough to make a drastic difference. But the real difference happens when you pull the tabs on the inside of the tailgate here, fold down the 60-40 split fold back seats, and now you're looking at a maximum of 74.1 cubic feet of cargo volume. Not to mention, if you're looking for a little extra storage, and I do mean a little, look underneath this rear floor, and for the most part, it's taken up by a compact spare tire. So no more fix-a-flats, no more tow trucks, no more anything like that, and no more worrying if your compact crossover has enough space for your groceries or your road trip. Now, for most, just giving a car a bit of an external refresh would be a good enough reason to call it a new enough model year. But not for Kia though, because while this car may have been facelifted, it isn't until you get inside the Sportage or really any of Kia's newest products that you realize they have gone completely crazy in here, but not in as outlandish of a method as you might expect. It all starts when you just get in and close the door. With this Prestige model having a two-person memory setting for the driver's seat, it automatically makes you feel a bit more comfortable. And that's on top of the fact that in this particular trim, we have the Syntex seats with these beautiful suede accents going across the top that are heated and ventilated for both front occupants. The steering wheel with its crazy two-spoke design, which I really haven't seen in many modern vehicles, not to mention the flat top and flat bottom, is also heated in the Prestige model as well. But beyond all of the sort of, usual stuff you might think of, one thing that Kia has really put their foot down on installing in many of their vehicles is this curved display that contains not one, but two 12.3-inch thin film transistor displays in this particular model. As you can guess, the one directly in front of you is your gauge cluster. Now, even this is kind of high tech because I love how you can change the look of the gauge cluster itself. Not so much just the information in the middle, but if you want a more traditional look, go for the circle option, as Kia calls it, or you can just go simple and have it look like something out of an aircraft. Now, again, that's more of a personal choice, but I've been driving it with the circle design. I just kind of like that more traditional look. But then your gaze shifts to the middle, and first of all, yet again, another 12.3-inch screen, as I said, but you now have Kia's newest Your Voice updates within their telematics. Now, factory stuff, yes, you have navigation, you have wireless Android Auto, wireless CarPlay, but you also have things like Kia's AI Assistant. And as fun as it is looking at your gauge cluster and being able to see out the side mirrors with that blind spot viewing monitor, of course, you can see all four of the cameras here in the center screen. But one thing that may be a little underwhelming to some is with a name like Prestige, you may expect that connected to the Your Voice system is a sound system that would be reminiscent of something in a movie theater or a concert hall. But nope, in this model, we have an 8-speaker Harman Kardon audio system. Now, yeah, the number of speakers may sound a little bit lackluster or diminutive to some, but the sound quality is anything but. But beyond the screens and the sound system, other things in here start to make you think, this isn't something I've really seen before, or this is from a Kia? Oh yeah, because starting with the climate control, for example, when the car's off, like it is right now, it's just blank. You just have two little knobs, which you might expect would be for your radio controls or something. But no, that is all your dual zone climate control system. And yes, it's not the first time we've seen it in a mainstream brand, but it is the first time I think even I've seen it in a Kia. All haptic feedback, basically as high-end of a climate control system as you could want. Even further down, you have two USB-Cs, which one of them can be alternated between a USB connectivity and charging point at the same time, to just being turned into a phone charger itself. Now, with the wireless charger, I think you could kind of do away with that. But down below, it gets as simple as you could want. Heated ventilated seat controls, heated steering wheel controls. I love the fact there's no push buttons for the gear selector, just a nice big chunky gear selector here. And then a few other little things like your camera modes, auto start stop, auto brake hold, the usual lot, right? And even before you get to this rather decent sized center console, you get to one of the coolest things ever. You look in the center and you would think, okay, well, I just have a bit more storage space, right? But nope. At one little push of this unlabeled button here, your cup holders pop out. Now, how cool is that? Now, even though, again, we are in a quote-unquote compact crossover here, it certainly does not feel like it, nor do you really get all the creature comforts just up in the front two seats. Here in the back, well, it may look a little bit sparse at first, but look a little bit closer and the little minute details become ever more so apparent. First of all, the detail you cannot ignore is that even with this car powered off, the memory seat all the way back, I'm over 6 feet tall and I have oodles of legroom back here. Pardon the voice crack, but I really do mean it. Oodles of legroom back here, and even more so, headroom. I mean, in any other compact crossover, I think I would struggle a little bit to find a good bit of comfort back here, but really, I mean, you couldn't make yourself any more comfortable if you tried, right? Oh, you can. First of all, yes, you have rear climate vents and a bit of storage. That's kind of ubiquitous, to say the least. But you have little hangers on the back of the front seats for hanging your groceries. How convenient is that, not having them roll around all over the back seat everywhere? Much less, in the back of the front headrest, you have what looks like a spot to put an iPad or a tablet of some kind, so you can have rear seat entertainment. Oh, and the battery decides to, get a little low on you. Look in the back of the rear of the front seats, and there are USB-C chargers. So no more big bundles of wires going everywhere. No more reaching down, into the lower console here. You just put your tablet up there, plug it into the back of the front seat, and you're all good to go. Even better if you pull down the armrest here, and yeah, the cup holders aren't that big, to be fair with you. They're about as big as a soda can, but you could do that. Reach down next to the seat here, grab it, and oh yeah. Now you're starting to see why this is not so compact of a crossover after all. And if you are somebody who's a bit taller, I definitely say the comfort level is a major talking point back here. And on that note, everybody, this now concludes our review and drive of the newly refinished 2026 Kia Sportage SX Prestige. Now again, before we say another word about this vehicle, I have to once again send my biggest thank you ever to the Parkway family of dealerships, specifically Parkway Family Kia out here in Kingwood, Texas. Without them extending the olive branch once again to allow us to see this new Sportage in the metal, let alone present it for all of you, God knows where we'd be right now. So if you guys are interested in another one of their new Kia vehicles, or perhaps any of the other manufacturers that they have for sale, be sure to check out the description box below where I've included all of their contact information. And while you're at it, not only ask for my friend Reed while you're over there to tell you all about the benefits of buying a new Kia, but also make sure that you tell them that you heard about Parkway on the driveway. But anyways, about the refinished Sportage, honestly, it is quite frankly surprising just how far the little details have all added up to stuff. Okay, some of them may not be so little, like the refinished face, the slightly redone rear end, and all of the stuff that you get on the inside, but all added up, the value for money really is here. Again, we're talking about a crossover that offers everything you've seen for under $40,000. And it isn't even a compact crossover. It's quite frankly pretty sizable for what it is. So again, if you're talking about a compact crossover that could potentially be the top dog or knocking on that door, I think you're looking at it right here. But anyways, if you've enjoyed learning about the newly refinished Sportage, or perhaps you're stopping by the channel for the first time, give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, things like this don't happen very often, and without your support, only know where I'd be right now. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.